Gentlemen, County Commissioners, a couple of announcements that I'd like to make before the meeting gets started. Is anyone from the general public would like to leave any material with the Commission, please give it to the Sergeant at Arms for distribution. That would be me for this meeting, and I've got some materials to pass around once I leave the podium. Please be reminded that video live streaming is prohibited in the Commission chambers. We welcome audio and video recordings. The areas in the back corners, to my right and to my left, in the back corners, are designated areas for audio and video recordings. If these two areas reach capacity, the upper mezzanine area, which is also considered the balcony, will also become a designated area.
Good evening. We have one individual that's requested to address the Commission, Ms. Deborah Moore. Ms. Moore, welcome. We would ask that you give us your, I've already told them your name, I think, but if you give us your address and please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Deborah Moore, 3785 Pondywood Road, Adams. Mayor and County Commissioners, first, let me say thank you to each of you for serving our county. You don't hear that enough, so thank you. You're given the responsibility by the citizens to faithfully steward the financial income of the county. It's a sobering task. I understand it from a business owner's perspective. For over 26 years, I began and operated a successful business. In 1997, I was one of 5 finalists for Middle Tennessee National Woman Business Owner of the Year. I never engaged in a new project without first creating a 5 to 10-year business plan on every proposal. That plan would outline the startup cost, ongoing expenses, the projected point at which the project would become profitable, and the total income the project would generate for the company. Over the past months, I've asked numerous county officials if I can view the business plan for the MPEC. So far, I have had no one tell me that such a plan exists. There's a plan describing where the money will come from to build it, but there's no plan showing the operational cost, maintenance cost, income from ticket sales, income from naming rights, nor the cost of updating the center, which normally occurs about year 10. How can you as county commissioners assure the residents of the county that you will be using their tax money wisely and efficiently if no such plan is required? How can you assure us that no additional tax increase will be needed to operate the MPEC or upgrade it? The revenue sources that are being used to fund the MPEC normally provide a backstop or a reserve behind the property tax dollars that our citizens pay each year. When we allocate those funds, we remove a reserve that we may need at some point in the future. We're now just paying off the bonds from the tornado that destroyed downtown in 1999. What happens if another disaster or even an unforeseen event occurs? Can we possibly be prepared to respond when we overextend ourselves with an MPEC? We hear about the overcrowding of the school system, and the majority of the outstanding debt for the county is related to the school system. We know that we're going to have to build a new middle school and a new high school in the next 5 years. These projects will cost over $100 million together. The prudent move is to delay the MPEC and concentrate on the needs that we know are in front of us. Would the MPEC be a desirable addition to our community? Maybe. But let's concentrate on what we have in front of us and keep our eye on the ball. As a former successful business owner and a citizen who's concerned about the expenditure of the county's money, I implore you that delaying the MPEC would be a wise move. The county cannot take the risk of the MPEC in addition to issuing $100 million for the building projects required for schools, as well as other projects in the budget. Thank you, and again, thanks for your service to the county. We appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll now call our informal September 3rd, 2019 County Commission meeting to order. We have actually just one presentation. Your agenda shows two, but Mr. Tyndall and the census update, there was a representative from the Census Bureau that had to cancel at the last moment, so they will give that update next Monday night. And so our trustee, Ms. Wiggins, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor, for the invitation to share the updates on the trustee's office. Good evening, commissioners. In your packet for this month, you have a new policy that will go into effect on October 1st in the trustee's office. It's called the overpayment underpayment policy. And as our legislative body, I just wanted to keep you updated on our operations because you're the ones who get the questions. We have worked closely with CTAS, our state auditors, accounts and budgets, and other offices in the county to ensure that our policy is fair, forthcoming, sound, and effective. There were certain parts of our policy that were in place, yet it was not written, and we can't have that. So with this policy, I looked earlier today. When you think of checks that are $10 or less, we had about 79 of those that had been uncashed. And we put this policy in place because when you think about an underpayment, when someone underpays their taxes, we currently send them a notice of the difference. When someone overpays, there is no requirement for us to process refunds, but it has been a longstanding tradition, and we feel it is the right thing to do if someone overpays their taxes. And what's happening with checks that are less than $10, they're not being cashed. So we write the checks, we mail the checks don't get cashed. Then sometimes we have to rewrite the checks, void the checks, mail the checks again, and we have even written several checks for the amount of 1 penny. And we know that that is not good use of us taking care of our client and the usage of our dollars. I've even been posed with a question of, well, can we apply any overage to the next year's payment? And the answer is technically yes, but two things have to happen. One, we need a software update. And secondly, we would need to get a change of our legislation, which would come through you. So that is our ultimate fix that I would like to see put in place. But in the meantime, this is what we can do, and it will start with our new tax year, which will be October 1, to make sure that we will continue to refund the people who pay significantly, which is over $10. We think that's significant. Anything under that, it will follow the new process. I just wanted to be available to see if you had any thoughts or questions for me. And we also shared our brochures with you and our 2 workshops that are upcoming because, as you know, tax relief, tax freeze applications will begin October 1 through April 5th.
Any questions of Ms. Wiggins? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
All right, commissioners, we have 2 zoning cases that were deferred from our August meeting, CZ 9, 2019 and CZ 12, 2019. I think Mr. Tyndall is going to do a brief overview again of those 2 zoning cases and provide you with any updated information that he may have regarding those. So, Mr. Tyndall, if you'd like to go forth with CZ 9 and CZ 12, please do so.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. No new cases this month, so we do have only the 2 deferrals from last month. For those of you who weren't here last month or might have forgotten some of the details, I'll just go over briefly the 2 cases from last month and give you any new information on it. The first one is CZ 9, 2019. It's the application of Bone, Hendry, Strange, and Ward. This is several family members. Last names, the agent is Holly Point LLC. It's 74.27 acres, currently zoned agriculture on Hickory Point Road, just south of Highway 12. They wish to go to E1A and R1 zoning, a mix of the 2. If you can see in this picture, the small section in yellow, the small box goes north to south on Hickory Point Road. That's the area zoned R1, the remainder to go to E1A. The difference here, it's in the planned growth area, so R1's the smallest lot size you can go to. These will be on septic system. R1 allows for a slightly narrower lot than E1A, and it allows them just to get a few more lots. With the current zoning with the proposed zoning, the applicant wishes to have all the lots front on an internal street versus on Hickory Point Road. This is not an extension of the zoning classification. The applicant's statement is to develop single-family residential homes. There's no sewer available in the area. I think last month we may have said that this was on East Montgomery water. This is actually on Clarksville Water and Sewers water system. They said there will be some water system upgrades required just for pressure out there. No other comments were received of concern. The school system provided their annual capacity for the school systems as well in their comments. As we mentioned last month, the historical estimates for a property this size in the breakdown that it's showing would be 68 lots. The applicant has since said about 63 lots. They're going to lose at least one lot to an amenity center, as well as avoid the stream buffer on the Little McAdoo Creek. They also expect, as anyone would expect, developing a property this size, that when the soil test comes back, you'll lose a couple more lots due to the perk rates for the septic systems. So again, somewhere in the low 60 range is what we would maybe expect. The staff recommended approval and the Planning Commission both recommended approval. I'll give you the four recommendations at the time. It's consistent with the adopted land use plan in the planned growth area. Adequate infrastructure serves the site or can serve the site with the developer driven up required updates to that water system there. Proposed E1A and R1 are not out of character for the area or for other single-family residential developments in the vicinity. And the adopted future land use opinion map identifies this area for residential development. Last month, the County Commission, at the County Commission's request, the developer and the engineer provided a secondary traffic assessment. The engineer is here tonight to answer any specifics, but I will say it was prepared on August 28th, supplied to our office, and we checked through this. They did what's called manual traffic counting. They actually sat someone on the side of the road on August 14th from 6 to 9 a.m. and 3 to 6 p.m. And the way you do a traffic assessment is during those 3-hour blocks, you'll take 15-minute increments. Whatever hour block in those 3 hours is the highest hour. That's called the peak hour. The peak hour for this intersection, Hickory Point and Highway 12, showed 12 cars exiting and going to the right or to south on Highway 12. A total of 102 exiting. I'm sorry, those were 12 cars entering from Highway 12, 102 exiting, and 0 entering coming north on Highway 12. That's in the morning peak hour. In the evening peak hour, there was 81 that made a right turn into Hickory Point, so Highway 12 south. There was 59 exiting and 11 coming from the south entering Hickory Point. The traffic assessment, the existing conditions, so as they are today, it operates in the morning at an A and a B level, and in the afternoon at an A and a C. It's important to note that the difference between that B and the C is 1.2 seconds of wait. So the average wait in the morning is 14.9 seconds to make a turn. That's regardless of direction. In the afternoon, again, 16.1 seconds. After they included the amount of trips and the trip rate provided, which is 9.57 trips per home per day, that's from the ITE manual. The morning would still remain as an A per this traffic study. The afternoon would drop to the morning would be an A and a C. Before I said it was a B. Again, 1.3 seconds difference, and then in the afternoon, an A and a C unchanged. So per the Planning Commission, as we reviewed this with our experts, we find that that's acceptable in this area for the amount of homes provided. I guess I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
Jeff, just one quick question. Do you anticipate any difference in traffic flow? August 14th was prior to schools being in session, correct?
School started August 9th this year.
Oh.
So there was some schools, maybe some of the private schools didn't start in time, but yeah, public schools started on August 9th. and August 14th was
Was that a full day school?
I'll find out. It was a Wednesday, the 14th. I believe that was a full week of school, the 12th to the 16th. So yeah,
Okay,
that would have included school-generated traffic.
thanks.
Thank you. Have we been provided a copy of that?
Planning Commission didn't provide you a copy of it. If the engineer hasn't, I'd just encourage them to do that. But
Can I get a copy of it?
I'm sure we
Please.
can get that.
Thank you.
Would you mind sending a copy to all the commissioners? Or
I can do that.
You can send it to Ms. Baggett, and she'll get it out either way. But if you would, just make sure you copy her on it if she doesn't send it out, so she knows that it's sent out and she won't bug me about it.
See, the request last month was made directly to the engineer, so we didn't provide that out. We were on the recipients, if you will, on that.
Any other questions of Mr. Tyndall on CZ 9, 2019? Okay, Mr. Tyndall, CZ 12, 2019?
Again, this is a holdover from last month. This is the application of Tommy Head. Agent is Joe Pewitt. The application request is 10 acres. That's because that's the minimum amount of acreage you need to request a brand new M2 zone when it's not an extension. The current property zone agriculture. The property is located on the north frontage of Oak Plains Road, approximately 750 feet from the intersection of Oak Plains Road and Old Oak Plains Road. As you can see just south in that picture there. And this is just north of Highway 12. The applicant's statement is to rezone this for Heads scrap metal. It's in the rural area of the county. It's an existing ag farm operation with multiple outbuildings. The land has rolling hills, ponds, and a tree line. The tract also has a blue line stream running east to west across the property. We received no comments or no concerns from other county departments. This would be on septic. Staff and the Planning Commission both recommended disapproval. The proposed zoning request is inconsistent with the adopted land use plan. The adopted land use opinion map does not indicate the need or desire for industrial zoning in this area of the county, and the property lacks adequate road accessibility to support truck traffic associated with the potential industrial operation. Any questions?
Questions of Mr. Tyndall on CZ 12, 2019?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I apologize. My computer restarted for some reason, and I can't find my mouse. So I'm having to, where is it? Oh, thank you. I called myself looking up there. I just looked around the wrong side. I apologize. Sorry. All right, we have our resolutions. Our first resolution is Resolution 1991. It's a resolution to accept funds from the Clarksville Montgomery County School System pursuant to a grant award from the Tennessee Department of Education as part of the Safe Schools Act and to make certain appropriations. Is there any questions regarding 1991? Sheriff, I don't know if you or, yeah, okay. You might want to give them just a little brief on this.
Good evening, Commissioners. What this is the Clarksville Montgomery County School System applied for grant funds for SROs. As you know, Governor Lee appropriated $40 million for the Safe Schools Act last year, which included $20 million of that for SROs for schools that do not currently have one. And also in the Safe Schools grant, there's grant funds there available for the school system to use for equipping those SROs. So the Clarkson Montgomery County School System applied for those grants, and they believe that I think that they have been awarded. But the only thing that this does not cover is about $158,000 that it would take to get those SROs some vehicles. These vehicles are anywhere in the range of 60 to 65,000 miles. They'll come from the Missouri State Highway Patrol, and it would come with the needed equipment to equip those vehicles. So what this would do essentially is give us 6 additional SROs to fill the 6 elementary schools and all the equipment except for the vehicles, and that's what this $158,000 will cover. So if any questions on top of that, I'd be glad to answer those.
Commissioner Albert?
Thank you, Mayor. How many schools are we short on fulfilling every school has a SRO?
Well, it's these 6 right here. This body appropriated the funding to cover every school. You remember the last one we did, it covered all but 6. So the elementary school SROs were sharing schools, so it was 1 SRO to 2 schools. Now, of course, through attrition, trying to get a body in that seat of an SRO to cover that school, it ended up being more of a 1-to-3 ratio, just for us having issues trying to find the SROs to fill those posts. But if all of the bodies that we have appropriated before would be 6 short, so this 6 right here through this grant fund would have 1 for every school, elementary, middle, and high. It does not include for the new schools that could potentially come too, so need to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Knight?
Taking the opportunity to explain it to everyone. And I was going to ask the same question, but I also want to ask, for schools such as, let's say, West Creek that has multiple schools within that area, is that going to cover 1 SRO for each one of those schools within that one locale?
That's right. If they're in a compound, and probably not the right word, a complex, where it's a middle, elementary, and high, we have 1 currently assigned to those schools. But if it happens to be an elementary school that did not have a full-time that was sharing a school, this will resolve that. There will be 1 at each of those 3 schools.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sheriff Fuson? Thanks, Sheriff.
All right, thank you.
Resolution 1992 is a resolution to adopt the 2020 legislative agenda as presented by the Legislative Liaison Committee. Any questions regarding 1992? Resolution 1993 is a resolution to amend the budgets of various funds for fiscal year 2020 in certain areas of revenue and expenditures. I'm going to let Jeff Taylor just jump through this real quick. I will, and Jeff will speak to this, but as the sheriff spoke, the funding for the vehicles is not part of that SRO grant, and so that is in this cleanup. If for some reason 1991 did not pass, then we would have to amend 1993 to remove those. But go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, sir. Most of this resolution is just in regards to grant carry forwards from the previous fiscal year, just carrying those over into FY fiscal year 20. The only items of note that aren't related to that were for the RPC 51720 planning. There was an increase of $16,458 in the cleanup. $9,458 of that was for the MPO match. There was also an additional $5,000 a match that we're sharing with the city for $5,000 for the historic downtown survey. And then another item was a $2,000 increase in health insurance costs. The other amendment that's not in relation to grant carry forwards is for the sheriff's office with their new employee requests during the budget process, not for these SROs right now. Originally, when they put their new employee request in, the dollar amount I believe they had was $48,270 for each patrol vehicle. They turned that in. We entered that into the employee request. After they got the new quotes, that cost changed to $52,404, which was an increase of $4,134 per vehicle. and I believe that was 9 patrol vehicles. Also, there was one unmarked vehicle for $6,378. For $33,900. That cost went up to, I believe it was $40,280 thereabouts, which increased that dollar amount to $43,684, which we have in the cleanup.
Any questions? Were you through? Did I interrupt you?
I think I misunderstood what you asked earlier. The appropriation they have for those SROs is in that resolution of theirs. That's that $158,000.
Okay,
at the
so it's
bottom.
in that resolution
Yes,
itself?
sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. Any questions of Mr. Taylor? All right, under reports, nominating committee nominations, Commissioner Gannon, Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. The nominating committee met today at 5:30. Next week, we will enter the following nominations in. Number 1, Chairman of the County Legislative Body, Jim Durrett, has been nominated to serve as chairman for a 1-year term to expire in September of 2020. Chairperson pro tempore of the Legislative Body, Larry Riccone, was nominated to serve a 1-year term to expire September of 2020. Committee on Investments, Commissioner James Lewis is nominated to replace John Gannon for a 2-year term to expire in September of 2021, and Commissioner Jason Knight has been filling an unexpired term of Joe Wayant and is eligible to serve a 2-year term to expire September 20 of 21. And we will enter those in as a motion next week.
Thank you, Commissioner Gannon. Under County Mayor appointments and nominations for the Port Authority, this will require commission approval. Jim Durrett reappointed to a 5-year term to expire December 2024. And under the Budget Committee, Larry Riccone appointed as Mayor Pro Tem to serve a 1-year term to expire September 2020. And Chaplain of the Legislative Body, Commissioner Joe Creek, appointed to serve a 1-year term to expire September 2020. Those first two will require commission approval. Commissioners, you see on your agenda the reports that are filed. I'm sure we will have some additional reports that will be on our agenda next Monday night. Any old business or new business? Quickly, we have a few announcements. Number one, and Mr. Albert, do you want to say anything about? I'll announce and let you say something about the baseballs if you'd like to, but all of you commissioners are invited to attend the ribbon cutting for the Field of Dreams at Civitan Park on Friday, September the 6th at 5:00 p.m. I don't know if you've been out there to see that. I was out there today, but it is absolutely, it's incredible. And it's something our community really, really needs. Jerry, do you want to say anything about the
Sure.
baseballs?
This is just a commemorative baseball without the commission's approval. Back several years ago, when this was just a thought and a dream, without your support, we could have not moved forward. So this is just a little small token on behalf of the Montgomery County Parks. And also you'll see the logo on there as well as the Rotary Field of Dreams, as they were a big part in making sure this happened. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the Rotary clubs. Without the Rotary clubs and our Community Health Foundation, this would, they've just been such a blessing to us. Commissioners, you're urged to attend the Tennessee County Commission Association Regional Meeting taking place in Springfield, Tennessee on September 12th at 5:30 p.m. The jury van will be available for those wanting to ride. However, some of you may need to carpool, and just let Shelley know if you plan to attend so we can report the number of attendees. And our 2020 legislative agenda reception will be held on September 24th at 5:30 at the Civic Hall. Please mark your calendars and plan to attend that event. And on September the 10th at the Roxy Theater, the Imagination Library is hosting a grown-up spelling bee. The social begins at 5 and the actual bee starts at 6. I understand we have a county team in it. I don't know if they're that good of spellers, but maybe led by Chief Edwards, and so good luck to that county team. And on two serious notes, I'd just ask that you two different groups of people. Number one, we have an EMS strike team that's deployed to North Carolina. And so I just ask you to keep those folks in your thoughts and prayers, and also everyone that has endured the wrath of this hurricane and those that are in its path as well. And then finally, most of you are probably aware the Clarksville Street Department lost an employee this morning, a very unfortunate incident down on Riverside Drive. And so I just ask that you keep that family in your thoughts and prayers, and also all of the co-workers at the Clarksville Street Department. I know they're having a very difficult time with it. So those are the end of our announcements. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.